And good morning world. It is the April the 1st 2020. It's a Wednesday morning. It's about 10 a.m. UK time. I had it all set up. I was going to do loads of jokes today and I was going to do loads of spoofs, and I just thought, you know what, it's not that good on April the 1st this year, so I'm just going to knock that on the head. And there are no jokes on this video. The jokes will continue until enough of you tell me that you don't want me to do it anymore, but not today, because this is the global forecast for April. But I also want to look at the long term, the big picture. As an astrologer, it's my kind of, interest. I could say duty or responsibility, but it's my interest to project forward, not just for the coming month or even the coming year, but to look forward long term. Now, as a few of you who watch my videos now know, for a year or two I've had my eye on the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune, firstly taking place at 29 degrees Pisces and then again at 0 degrees of Aries at the very start of the zodiac in about 4-5 years from now. And I do view that by that time Pluto will have moved into Aquarius, Uranus will be moving into Gemini. It's going to be very much a whole fresh start at a permanent level, and that truly is perhaps the start of the Aquarian age that we're moving into now. A bit closer to home. Over the last year or so, I've been looking forward into 2021. And I've been thinking, well, 2021 compared to 2020 is really light. But then I've had cause to review that now, bearing in mind what's been happening in the world in the last couple of months. And when I've been looking at 2021, the only thing that jumps out at me big time over a long period of time is the year-long square from Saturn in Aquarius to Uranus in Taurus. Now that's a bit of a stinker. Saturn in Aquarius is not exactly flexible, and Uranus in Taurus certainly isn't. So it's very much like two bits of hard sandpaper forcing up against each other. It's the unstoppable force against the immovable object. And I've always looked at that as some type of challenge in terms of the old structures versus the new attitudes, the new systems of money and finance versus the old systems of collective community. And now with the virus kicking in now, it's obvious that next year that suggests that there's going to be a period of reconstruction next year that's not going to go according to the old rules. However, it's not all bad news. Before that, in December of this year, Jupiter and Saturn will conjunct each other, and the conjunction will take place at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So it does seem to me that the more we get into the third week of December, around the solstice, we're going to be seeing a fresh start, a new beginning, a kind of whole reset happening in a way that people are going to be much more enthusiastic about. And that is something to watch for those astrological students amongst you. The third week of December, fourth week of December, when Jupiter and Saturn are conjunct, they both move into Aquarius within a couple of days of each other. That's going to be a really fascinating time and hopefully a really positive one. But now I'm looking at April 2020. The single biggest factor in April 2020 is the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. Jupiter will actually conjunct Pluto for the first time in about 4 days, 5 days from now. The Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is amplifying, exaggerating, bigging things up, making everything larger than life. And bearing in mind that Jupiter is conjunct Pluto, I'm surprised that humanity seems to be handling the virus as well as it is at the moment. There's not too many drama queens out there or too many people making things larger than life. Even some of the more sensationalist world leaders, Brazil excluded, seem to be actually buckling down and getting on with things. And dealing with things in a realistic way. However, Jupiter is now going to be conjunct Pluto right the way through to early December of this year. So the amplification of transformation, the growth and expansion in terms of the rebirthing and the regenerational hopes that are pinned on this is going to be ongoing. And whilst Jupiter is conjunct Pluto for the first time, as they're both moving forward, then yes, there's going to be lots of spouting of dreams and visions and ideas. But Pluto will stand still and start going retrograde at the end of April. And Jupiter will stand still and start going retrograde in mid-May. And whilst they're both retrograde, I suggest that this is a time where dreams, visions and ideas are going to start turning into blueprint, schedule and plan. And that when Jupiter starts moving forward again in early mid-September and Pluto starts moving forward again in very early October, that's when the dreams, the plans, blueprints and schedules will turn into actions and events. So put that on a global context, it does seem that, yeah, from an economic perspective, the planet's going to be on a reset, and it's going to take until October before we get traction again, hopefully not in the old ways. I don't want to see the markets just going back to the old systems. I don't want to see people jetting across the world, myself included, just when FaceTime and Zoom and Skype are so easy to do. I don't want to see chemtrails in the sky. The planet's had a big reset now. The pollution levels are so low. I want to keep it that way. And I'm sure most people do. But whether the corporate interests will listen to what the people want or not is another matter. Jupiter conjunct Pluto is changing and exaggerating and amplifying the voices for both sides of the argument about what the future holds. And it's going to be really interesting from my perspective to see how this develops over the coming few months as we reassess and reset our attitudes for the rest of the year. But yes, Jupiter conjunct Pluto in April. Now Pluto's in Capricorn, Neptune's in Pisces, Uranus in Taurus. This is ongoing. Saturn is now in Aquarius. Go. We haven't seen Saturn at the start of Aquarius since 1990, 1991. And that was a very different world then. Very different. And yeah, that's where I'll have a whole set of videos on its own at some stage in the near future. Jupiter in Capricorn, yes, okay. Conjuncting Pluto, getting close to conjuncting Saturn, but not quite. The new moon in Taurus on the 23rd of April, that's going to be loosely conjunct Uranus. So I'm going to be looking particularly at that in a moment. The full moon in Libra on the 8th of April, 2:25 GMT, 3:25 UK time, or it's in the late evening on the 7th New York time. It's about 1 p.m, 2 p.m. in the afternoon on the 8th Melbourne time. This full moon is in conjunct Neptune in the sky. The last full moon was opposite Neptune in the sky. This one's in conjunct 150 degrees. So this is just suggesting that, yes, the virus is not going away anytime soon, and it's going to be around. The lockdown on the world is going to be continuing pretty much incessantly for the next 3 or 4 weeks. I somehow suspect, I still think that by the time we're before the end of April, restrictions are going to be lifted and we're going to be seeing things changing, but there's going to be a lot of cautionary measures. Mercury's going to leave Pisces. Now Mercury's been in Pisces since the start of February. With its retrograde process now complete, I think both Pisceans and the world in general will give a big cheer when Mercury leaves. Mercury's going to leave Pisces on the 11th of April and move into Aries, and then it's going to zip through Aries and move into Taurus around the 27th of April. At the very end of the month, Mercury will start conjuncting Uranus, so I do expect some quite startling news in the last day or two of April. Venus, which has been in Taurus over most of March is just about to leave, and Venus will move into Gemini on Friday of this week, on the 3rd of April, and then it will spend the rest of the month in Gemini, and Venus is now beginning to slow down. Those keen astronomical observers will have noticed that Venus isn't getting any higher in the sky now, and indeed over the coming few weeks you're going to see Venus beginning to get lower and lower in the sky, and then slowly as we get more and more into May, it's going to disappear from the sky as it goes retrograde in Gemini, and then it will become the morning star by the time we're into the middle of June. Venus was going to move into Gemini in a couple of days' time, and then it's going to stay there until early August. So it's going to be 4 months in Gemini. That's unusual. A lot of Geminis will be thinking, oh, having Venus in my sign, that'll be nice. Not so sure on this one. But while Venus is moving forward for the first time in Gemini, it won't go retrograde till we're into early May, then during April it's a generally benevolent aspect. Now Mars is in Aquarius. I love Mars in Aquarius. I think it's a great place. I like Mars in Capricorn, but I like Mars in Aquarius as well. People with Mars in Aquarius are really good when it comes to being things like paramedics, fire officers, police officers. Their ability to make on the spot yes, no, black, white decisions from a cold, detached, impersonal perspective. They're very good at saving lives. And I'm a big fan of Mars in Aquarius. I think it's a good position for Mars. The conjunction with Saturn is over, although the effects are going to be around for the next 2 or 3 days. And I still expect some very interesting news to come out of Britain in the next 48 hours. And if I'm wrong, hey, I'm wrong. But there's something going on in the background. Mars over the coming month is going to square Uranus around about the 7th, 8th of this month. And when I see that in individuals' charts, I'm thinking that's why I'm saying that the first week of April is probably the most difficult time of the month. But then Mars is going to be giving most of the rest of us a break. As it trundles through Aquarius, it's not really making difficult aspect to any other planet. It's not touching Saturn or Uranus or Neptune or Jupiter. Once we're past the first week of April. So the first week of April is the most difficult time. It's the most frustrating time. Mars will actually square Uranus on the 7th. So by the time we're into the 9th, by the time we're past the full moon, I'm going to be a lot happier. And the 9th, the 8th, 9th is when I'm starting doing readings again for clients. It's as we get into the end of the month, I'm a little bit concerned. We have the new moon on the 23rd, conjunct Uranus. The new moon is also square Saturn. So I suggest that as we get into the period around the 21st, 22nd, particularly the 22nd, 23rd of this month, that's if there's going to be any kind of unrest, disgruntledness, that's when it's going to be. With the new moon square Saturn, there's going to be a chafing at restrictions. And with the new moon conjunct Uranus, there's going to be the desire for liberation and breaking free. So I suspect around the 22nd, 23rd is when we'll see if there's going to be big changes in the world, if there's going to be any disruption, chaos or unpredictable or dramatic circumstances developing. This is when I expect it to be. Fortunately, I don't expect this as being too difficult. The sun will be square Saturn, the moon will be square Saturn, they'll both be conjuncting Uranus. But Venus and Mars will be trining each other in from air signs, so there should be good communications. I note that as Venus draws still at the end of the month, it starts squaring Neptune, but that's not really a big deal. To be honest, folks, I'm not too worried about April. Not comparatively. Yes, we're all on lockdown. Yes, we're all going to be staying inside. A few people have been sending me these forecasts from America for the coming month. Aries, you're going to be spending a lot of time indoors. Taurus, you're going to be spending a lot of time indoors. Cancer, you're going to be spending a lot of time indoors. Yeah, right. The first 9 days, first 8 days of April. If there's going to be any more difficult news, this is when it's going to be. If there's going to be any sort of pushing against boundaries, this is when it's going to be. By the time we're into the 9th of April, the hardest time of the month is already past. Although the 22nd, 23rd of April, around the new moon, is also a time where people might just start getting a little bit frustrated about being kept in. Watch this space. But April, in general, has far less of the angst of the March and February has. Yes, we're in lockdown, but it ain't going to get any worse. Or in most places, it isn't going to get any worse by the time we're into the 10th. I think we're at peak. I know others were saying we're not at peak for 2 or 3 weeks yet. I think we're at peak. And April is just a question of suck it and see. And by the time we're into the start of May, I look forward to being out there in the world again, and hopefully everyone else will be too. Catch you later, world. Good luck. Back to the jokes from tomorrow. Bye now.